and gentlemen, we are live, coming to you live from New York, and it's been a while. It's been a fantastic time, but we want to welcome everyone back to another episode of the Running Bear.
All right, I'm excited already, man.
Thanks, man.
What a way to start this off.
I was gonna say, coming in hot, bro. Coming in hot.
Always.
There's been a lot of stuff going on in life. But let's get right down to it, bro. I've been seeing so much stuff about more and more about plant medicine, herbal medicine, right off the rip. And I see a lot of it, maybe because I just came back from Colombia, did ayahuasca down there, and it was incredible.
All right.
Absolutely incredible, dude. If you haven't done it already, I advise you to do it. You know,
I have not done ayahuasca yet.
as I sip the Kool-Aid.
I have
man,
my
sip
own
the
experience.
magic. Yeah. No, but it was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. I haven't really talked about all of it. I feel like I'm more in an integration phase. We'll talk about more what that is. But I wanted to talk to you kind of about what's been going on with that. And one, I'm trying to articulate it I'm just trying to articulate it. And as I'm understanding more and more about not just ayahuasca, but the understanding of plant medicine, those two words, plant medicine, brought me down this rabbit hole of herbal medicine. Sounds exactly the same. Herbals, plants, herbs, plants. The herb.
Gets a little confusing.
It sounds like it was always been the same to me until I actually started breaking it down and saying, okay, well, let me define herbal medicine. And herbal medicine should be plant medicine in my mind. A little bit different. It's a little bit different. So I want to have a conversation with you, man, because I know you have, in your own way, experienced a variety of different plant medicines, possibly. Maybe you. Let me just first start there. Let's define plant medicine, and then do you use plant medicine?
I mean, if you're going to talk about defining it, I think let's also understand, like, we're trying to put labels to something that can get very confusing in our heads because we also have our own subjective experiences. So for one, we're calling it medicine, right? If we're calling it medicine, that means there must be a sickness or an illness of some kind that it's supposed to be a cure for. Otherwise, we wouldn't call it medicine. It would be so we're already taking it from the angle, which I definitely think that's the correct angle to look at it to begin with, is there must be something that this is a solution for, not just seeking it for fun or some kind of, recreational experience. And then plant is plant, right? So we're saying some kind of natural source that is curing or is coming as a medicine for some kind of illness that we have within us. And that's what this all comes down to, right? So then you like herbal medicines and all these things. I mean, really the difference here is the psychedelic compound, right? So if there's a psychedelic compound to it, this enters an area where it's very vague and subjective, and everyone might have their own kind of experience, and the claims become very, wide ranged. Herbal medicine, I mean, as far as I understand it, we're talking about more of a using natural substances to fix our body, even our mind.
Dietary, turmeric,
but it's not
lavender
experience enhancing, right? You don't drink lavender tea and have an experience, but drinking ayahuasca, you will definitely have an experience.
Right.
Eating
Right.
psychedelic mushrooms, you'll have an experience. So I think that's maybe the determining factor you're looking for here is it experience based, or is it just a compound that's supposed to enhance our health?
Well, as I was trying to look for a lot of stuff on it, and as far as like research, and I've done my own amount of research and homework as far as like before I went down there and did this, and because this is, again, I'm just disclosure, this is my personal opinion, something from an experience standpoint that I personally prepared myself for that experience. So that's just me. I don't advise anybody. This is not medical advice. This is just pure,
certainly not.
Not at all. This is just pure my opinion and my experience. That's just me. But it was an amazing experience for me. And by amazing, it allowed me to have an experience that probably a lot of meditating and a lot of just a lot of focus. I wouldn't be able to get there as easily I don't know how else I can't really articulate it in the words. It's something that I've still to this point of time have had difficulty putting into words. However, I have had an experience, and my experience, I could say use words like life-changing. I could say like mind-altering, a feeling state, different dimensional piece to it. There's a lot of elements to it. That's my experience. However, it won't be the same for the next, so I can't comment on that. But I do want to talk about the feeling state and also what it ultimately is. So when I think of medicine, at least now in 2025, medicine, as to your point, is something that's supposed to. There's something sick. There's something sick, and you're curing something. That's one aspect of it. But as I learn more and I do more and experience more, medicine, in my definition of health, is also changing, because then there's preventative medicine. There's medicine, preventive medicine. There's medicine, and then there is herbal medicine. There's medicine, and there's plant medicine. So all of these definitions of medicine I've been questioning them all. And again, from experience standpoint, I realize that they're not the same thing. And because they're not the same thing, it's also very difficult to put them into a category.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to articulate, this is medicine, this is preventive medicine. Again, not a doctor, not a botanist to be able to put all those. It's just personal experience. But my experience specifically was amazing. It's always been, it's my second time doing ayahuasca. I took a trip down to Colombia by myself, went into a cabin for a while.
Did you find that there was a difference in your takeaways from the first versus the second time?
Absolutely.
What was the difference?
That's a big question. My biggest I can't say my biggest. It's hard to compare. They're just two different experiences. That's the best way I can put it. They're two different experiences in two different takeaways. I was not given two different things, but my journey between both of those were different.
Did they feel related in some way as well?
Physically, yes. The process of going through ayahuasca is very uncomfortable.
As it should be.
You do a bunch of things in a ritualistic standpoint. You have Kambo. Am I saying that correct? Kambo, which is a poison frog, which essentially is put into a maybe the tribal mark, if you will. These open circles. These are open stuff that they put poison frog in there, and you vomit. Sounds torturous. Sounds absolutely torturous. That's how you're introduced to purge. Because you want to be as light and as clean as possible. You're fed an organic diet because you want to be light. You don't want to have a bunch of meat and be heavy. You vomit a lot. You poop a lot. It's just, it is what it is. And it just is what it is.
It's kind of funny you hear that and people still flock to it. It sounds like a great time. Let's go.
Yeah, no. When you put it like that, at first I'm like, that sounds miserable. I don't. For me. When you think about that, you think about so many things come to your mind. Initially, it's an instant turnoff, man. You think about like somebody being in a toilet stall and just looking into through the eyes, just like, hey, man, you hurry up in there.
Never had such an intimate shit with someone else.
Exactly, instantly. In fact,
but there is something freeing about that, I guess, as well.
Absolutely, because there's something free about everyone being on the same page and everyone being in.
Yeah,
and I think that was a very eye-opening thing. That was actually my first takeaway was that I was so comfortable instantly because you're instantly bonded with people by vomiting.
The tribal element of the experience, the whole experience.
Everyone's in. Everyone's in. Everyone just went through this thing that was uncomfortable.
Yeah,
you're instantly in. And now it's almost like that layer is slow. Those layers are slowly just peeled back, slowly peeled back one by one. That was just my initial physical. Like physically, there's a lot that happens physically. But then there's the element that happens emotionally, and then there's the element that happens spiritually, if you will. I use those words, but you start going through these processes, and there's layers day in and day out that are just ripped back, and you're just showing yourself to the bare bones, man. Not even the bare bones. I can't even say that. It's beyond your bare bones. It's down. It's a mirror of you, without your physical, more your ego. Exactly what you're made of, the deep down crevice of all the things you hide. Ooh, skeletons in your closet or whatever you want to call it. All doors are open.
I mean, what you're saying now, I think kind of in some way answers your question, because you're like, you want to understand medicine, plant medicine. Well, then those layers, it's in that depth where the illness was, right? Our psychological or energetic illnesses that we've been holding and suppressing for so long. That's what these things are intended to be used for. It's supposed to kind of purge these things out of you. The energetically, physically, emotionally, psychologically, all these things need to come out, right? And to be used that way, I see validity. I understand. And a lot of cultures understood this as well. There is a dimension to this experience that is very abstract and abnormal to people that are just living in the regular world, jobs, family, the 9 to 5 kind of daily routine life. The sickness, the deep sickness they're holding within themselves. When do you address this? How do you address this? Some people, they find other ways, but not everybody therapy works, or some kind of a medication, that pharmaceutical medications is just not working. Maybe it suppresses their symptoms, but going through these experiences, it's the experience that is the medicine. You see, that's kind of where the interesting factor of this comes in. It is that experience, and we go through life with a certain kind of, I'll use this word intentionally, delusion about what is reality. We think our life, our structure, our perception of ourselves and others is reality, because that's what we see. We allow our senses and we allow our mind to fool us.
It's just a squirrel in your world, man.
Exactly.
Egos.
And that's where our sickness comes in, because we are if we used these delusions to create harmony amongst ourselves, I mean, it's still, at least may still be a delusion, but it's fair, but it's creating conflict amongst ourselves, amongst each other, and then these things come into play. Is it the only way out? Absolutely not. It's a very powerful and potent avenue to explore, but that doesn't mean it doesn't come with its risks and fallbacks as well. So there is a balancing factor that everyone needs to be honest with themselves about, and know that there's a risk to this as well. But then there is also a reward. High risk, high reward situation.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's a fantastic point, because again, this is just my experience. I've done my own homework, and it's something that I have always in my mind wanted to do. I don't want to run for myself. I try to live a healthy lifestyle, but it's mind, body, spirit. Though that's how my mind works, at least anyway. And I want to develop each of those. And where I'm weak in others, I want to develop that. Sometimes my spirituality is off kilter. Sometimes more on the physical side. If I have physical problems, my energy is more focused. I have to be balanced every single day. I wake up, thank you, God, thank you. I have to be so grateful before I go to sleep. I want to be making sure that I'm consistently blessing others in service. I have to continue to do that. Now, if I'm worried about something, it's my energy. My energy's going that way. And if I get out of sync, eventually I'm out of sync. I'm out of rhythm. What I realized is that there are different dimensions, and I know I'm going a little bit deep here. There's different dimensions to it. So there's the mind, body, and spirit, from what I can see, what I can feel. This medicine, if you will, allowed me to tap into something that I couldn't necessarily tap into myself, just naturally. It wasn't very easy, but it allowed me to tap into it. And because I tapped into it naturally, I was also able to be present in that moment. Now, I can't articulate it. It gives me goosebumps thinking about it, because it's very real for me. Very real. The feelings are very real. Exchange very real. My intentions were very real. And I'm left with something. Yeah. It takes something, it gives something. Yeah. That to me was one of the biggest ahas my first time, because I was going through something at that time. At that time, a few years back when I did it for the first time, I was very nervous. I didn't know what to expect. I just didn't know what to expect. And my expectation was just that. I had an expectation of maybe this is going to be awesome. Hopefully nothing bad happens. physically, I hope I don't come out crazy. I'm a crazy friend,
It's possible.
It's possible.
It happens.
It's possible. So to your point, it was very important for me to address and accept whatever I was going in there with for me. Now, I'm not advising anybody else to do that without having a good understanding of their health and the medical and who they are, at least going into something of that nature, because sometimes things happen in those feeling states. Maybe you don't want to open that door. Maybe you have some trauma that you are trying to hide under your bed and you never want to open that. And this thing just flood, damn.
Yeah.
And you live in that moment, and it's so real. Those feelings are real. And if you can't navigate that and you don't understand what that flood will do to you, it could be nightmarish.
Yeah.
It could be absolutely, you say bad trips or whatever have you, or maybe it could be enlightening.
The bad trips, in my opinion, are the ones that teach you what you needed to learn. Because I think the whole concept here, or the whole premise here, is that we should first understand we're seeing the world through our mind and through our ego. That's usually how we're experiencing the world. These experiences shatter that entirely. Temporarily. And that's another thing we can get into later about what happens to the ego during and after. But temporarily, we're shattering this whole illusion that we've created for ourselves. So that's why we feel present, we feel grounded, we feel connected, because you always are. It's not that you ever weren't. It's that there were these layers, there was this veil, self-imposed veil that we have on top of this. And that's why we have these delusions. So if maybe for the very first time, someone's getting to experience what is consciousness, what is life, what is this realm of experience that isn't limited by my own kind of imposed structure to reality. That itself is very eye-opening, right? Because we're and as you can probably attest, you're getting to see life, you're getting to see yourself, you're getting to see how everything is connected. The senses are kind of not separated as they normally are. The sight, the feeling, the hearing, everything's kind of one field that all the senses are kind of mangled together, and everything seems infinite and expansive and connected. And sometimes that's where that creates difficulty, is when someone is so attached to the ego that they fight it. And that fight and wrestle with it is the bad trip. Is you're fighting so hard to retain your own structure, your own ideas, your own perception of reality, that it's creating so much inner conflict. And that is the very conflict someone has on their spiritual path as well. If someone's getting into yoga or getting into some kind of structured spiritual path, they're going to have, it is a process of the ego in some way, and you're going to have to let a lot go. And psychedelic experiences kind of compress that into a very quick, this has to happen now. It's not going to happen over years, now. And then that's going to create a lot of issues for people. Not a lot of people were expecting to go through it on that level. Maybe they thought to see strange things, but they didn't think the very idea
Have some control.
of themselves, it has to be renounced. You have to be ready to die. Because you being the ego, nothing else can die. Again, another deeper conversation for another time, but the real you, consciousness, cannot die because it cannot be born. It just goes through experience to experience. But the ego, the mind, these are accumulated, and these are very, sensible and vulnerable structures we have within us. And the psychedelics challenge that. But that gives you perspective. That's why we feel so free. We feel so, like you just come out of it like, I have to be a better person. I have to not forget that everything is connected, and not to see that all these illnesses and sicknesses and psychological things, even if it came from traumas and it came from whatever, I'm holding them. No one can force me to hold them. People can do terrible things to you, and all the time, and they probably will always try, and they might have already done that, but you choose to hold this, and it's like, you have your fist clenched all this time, and you just didn't know it, and finally the release of it is so freeing. It feels so good. Now, where the problem arises, in my opinion, is that after this experience, we have this illusion like the work is done. That's where the problem comes in. That's where this whole kind of subculture of post-psychedelic experience communities, and they keep getting into it over and over again, and a whole lifestyle develops around it. And in my opinion, where's the ego death? What happened here? Like, well, I thought we were free of this is the claims, at least what I'm hearing people say. They're using these buzzwords. To me, it also lacks. You have the experience, but you're not able to come out of it and attach it to real structure, to real tangible and applicable wisdom, right? You think you've had the experience, it's done. I see that we're all connected. I see this, but you don't anymore. That's the thing. You had it then. Now you're using the memory of the experience as your virtue. You talk to people about it, and you're right in the words you say. But it's very clear when you sit with people and talk about them, you've just developed another ego. Maybe you killed the old one, but now you have another one, and you're living in this delusion that you don't have one anymore. Yeah. And to me, this is where, like, my experiences taught me this. I've seen other people along their way. This is a very important aspect. I think something we should talk about in this episode is what's happening to the ego here. Okay. Because that's the only realm this experience is really taking place on. The ego is having this experience. The ego is the thing that disappears temporarily, if at least in this experience. And it's also the thing that can be harmed. And which will cause psychological issues, or, like things that people, have long-term negative effects from.
Yeah, I have a story, not my story per se, and obviously won't say any names here, but a buddy of mine said that there was someone when I told one person, my other friend, you'll meet him, but I told him about the whole me going to ayahuasca, and he seemed really concerned, and he was just telling me about something that happened to his friend, and what happened to his friend was that he went into this experience. And in my mind, I'm very excited. I'm saying I decided I'm going to do it, and I did my homework and understood what I was getting into, understood everything in that dimension for myself. I told one person, my mistake. And I just immediately started getting like negative stories about it. He's like, oh, dude, this guy came out and now he's homeless and he's probably doing all this other stuff. I'm like, thanks, man. That's I feel so encouraged now. Like, this guy went in there with optimism and came out, and now he's just something happened. Something mentally happened to him, and he changed. And that's what he said. He's this guy changed. He was weird, but he was weirder coming out. He wasn't the same. Something was off, and he was very paranoid, and there was a lot of things that he would accuse him of, and all of this stuff. And I'm like, well, I hear what you're saying, all right? Someone's telling me of something that they heard through somebody else. For me, I haven't had that experience. Well, that's now I subconsciously have this experience of this guy who does this thing.
I definitely saw that. I mean, there's been a substantial amount of research on this subject as well, that if someone has an underlying, maybe it hasn't shown itself yet, but they have schizophrenic, kind of dormant schizophrenic tendencies. Maybe it's genetic, maybe not, but it could unleash that onto the person. And so, what benefit did they really have? They just cracked themselves, and that goes back to, I mean, in my opinion at least, that goes back to that this is an experience of the mind and of the ego, and if it's not prepared and structured enough properly, it's just going to crack you. And then you can't say, okay, I had a good experience, so this person's going to have a good experience. It's a very subjective reality. And that's where the risk comes in, because you don't know. You didn't really know for sure that somewhere deep inside of you is the tendency to become schizophrenic, right? Or delusional in some way or another. And you couldn't have been sure that it wouldn't have happened to you.
It's me, your crazy friend.
Exactly. So you took a risk. And a lot of people are taking a risk. And like I said, high risk, high reward. So this is also a reality, because you can't go around telling people everybody should do it. No one should do that. And maybe it worked great for you, but it's difficult at this point, at least, where all the research and suggests it's not purely safe, because we just don't know. Same thing with vaccines. Same thing. I mean, all kind of medicine is the same thing. We don't know how each person is going to individually respond to it, but we do know it's been used. We do know it can be used, and That's why the conversation is important. And I don't like personally that it's so much of a culture about promoting its uses, and I don't think it should just be legal. Everybody should just, I mean, legal, yes, but it shouldn't just be everybody should have access to it. There should be guardrails around this to make sure we're not just kind of pushing people into these experiences, because it's also being talked about for people with mental illnesses, PTSD, kind of psychotic breakdowns. Like I see people that don't know much about it talking to other people that don't know much about it and pushing them towards this. That's a dangerous area. And I know this is reality because when you look into even yogic processes, tantric processes, there's the same guardrails that should be put up, because that maybe something is able to allow a certain energy to flow within you, unblock certain things within you, help you realize things, help you enhance certain aspects of you. If you're not ready, it's just going to harm you. You can't. There needs to be a preparation. There needs to be a foundation that this can build upon, and even people that can handle it. This needs to now come with a very disciplined structure to implement the things that you've learned. This was my experience. Like, my personal experience from them is it didn't give me answers to anything. It just opened my mind to see realities beyond my perception.
When you say them, what is them?
What do you mean?
When you said them,
psychedelic experiences. For me, it was more mushrooms. I feel like psilocybin mushrooms was what I was more inclined to experience.
Yeah.
I have tried DMT as well. Other stuff as well, but mainly for me, the curiosity arose because it's not that I had any kind of real desire to have these experiences, but I found people speaking of perceptions of reality beyond the mind and beyond the imagination. That intrigued me a lot, because it interested me a lot, and I saw people have spiritual and not religious, but spiritual kind of tendencies develop after it. That fascinated me a little bit.
Would you say that you were seeking a higher understanding of yourself?
Not when I got into it. I feel like, if I'm being honest, I feel like I was looking to have the experience. And this was also my more younger, immature kind of perspective. I wanted to have the experience so that I can, when I have the conversation with someone who's like, you don't know anything, you haven't tried it, you don't know, that I'll be able to be like, okay, I have tried it, and I can tell you this is all self-created. But then I did it, I'm like, okay, no, this is way beyond.
Went in there with the ego.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this is way beyond anything I could have imagined. That was what was fascinating to me. It's like, I could not have imagined this to create it within myself. I can't comprehend it. That's why you started. I can't articulate what I can't comprehend.
I understand in a way you don't even need a word.
Exactly.
I get it.
So that taught me in time, because later in life, I went down my path as a yogi, and I started to hold a lot of the things I was learning as a yogi, experiencing as a yogi, up against experiences of psychedelics and claims within the psychedelic, not the modern, like, kind of Western culture of it, but even the more shamanic, kind of ancient cultures around psychedelics. They've been used for exploration of the consciousness. That's how I saw them used originally. They were never recreational, never intended to be nor should they ever be intended to use recreational. When I see people using them in, like, festivals, I think that's the dumbest thing you can do with an experience like this, because you're missing the whole point, and you're also numbing yourself to the ability to see what's really happening.
That's a fantastic point. And the same thing goes for ayahuasca. Because there's a lot of these programs, and then the one I went to, there's a shaman master, and the shaman master has a very set of rules or protocols that go into the ritual of how you essentially bless the ayahuasca, how you go into the ceremony, how you lead people. It
matters.
It absolutely matters.
For sure.
In fact, without that, there is no reason for you to ever do it outside of those specific guidelines. It's like going, I don't want to say like a spiritual mentor, a mentor of anything. If you wanted to go into business, if you wanted to go into the gym, and you wanted to have this goal, and you want to do something as fast as possible, you have to also do it correctly if you're going to do it in that playing field, if you will. And they guide you along, and they make sure that process is as right as possible, because realistically, if not, you'll mess yourself up along the way. whether it be physically, mentally, or spiritually. You can mess yourself up and come out a different person. You can
Not for the better.
Not for the better. Not for the better. You can be really uncomfortable. You can have a bad experience, and
just be very confused for possibly the rest of your life.
Even from a chemical standpoint, you can mess yourself up chemically if you don't know what you're doing, or someone else with you is not there to help in that moment. So it's advised against doing that at any given part for recreational, a party, anything. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You do this when you understand, at a bare minimum, I believe, yourself on at least a health. Let's start there on a health level. Sure, you could have the curiosity. That's fine, but then there becomes that piece where you have to understand there's a place and a time for it. Not just when you want something and your ego wants something. It has to be done correctly. If that's the case, if you are curious, if you are seeking this information, do it guided and a mentor or someone who can guide you through that process, because I think that's vital if you are curious. Yeah. If you are curious.
And guide you after the process. This is where I see the biggest mistakes. And I think this is a good moment to bring this topic up. People go, they do their trip, whatever it may be ayahuasca, psilocybin, DMT, LSD, whatever you might have tried, it gave you an experience. The experience shifted your perception of reality. It made you dive deep within yourself, beyond the mind, beyond the ego. I will agree that it was very real to you. And it was very real, even outside of what you thought. I agree with that. The issue I see now is that because of this experience, there's a kind of after effect of it, right? Where you feel like things make a little more sense. You feel lighter, you feel freer. And now the issue is that I'm seeing when people don't have the right structure of how to work with the self, and at least in my context, like yoga teaches you that. That's not the only way, but it was for me. To dissect the mind, understand how the mind works, understand how the thoughts work, understand how the ego works. Very important. What is this identity that we hold? And what is it? How is it good? How is it bad? How must it be used? To have delusions about these things and then go into the experience and come out of it, you're usually coming out of it thinking the work is done. And then what happens is you get absorbed in a lot of cases into this kind of culture that dresses a certain way, and there's the music, and there's a community.
Bunch of hippies.
Exactly, it is that.
A hippie,
you wear the beads, you get the tattoos, it all, you kind of just get integrated into this thing. But now you just have a different ego. What ego death are you talking about? And here's the thing. Because you're saying this word ego death, you've now confused yourself into thinking you're living free of the ego now. So anything you do is not subject to criticism. Now you're entering these weird polyamorous or whatever relationships and manipulating people about it. And you're just virtue signaling all these things you might have learned, regurgitating kind of spiritual wisdom from other cultures, and you're still lost and you're still confused. And in my opinion, this happens because you've not done work. This was what I saw that was needed. You have your experience. You understand your issues. You understand you have a window of time now where you now have to implement disciplines that don't allow you to slip back in, because this is the nature of the mind and this is the nature of the ego. We are assuming this substance was stronger than our mind and our ego. It was temporarily. It absolutely was for that 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, whatever you did it for.
Yeah.
It was stronger. But it is a very strong flowing current, like a river. As soon as you get that substance out of your system, you slowly but surely, you're going to go right back down that same current. Now, you may have different clothes, different look, different words, different ideas. You may be just as manipulative to yourself and other people, just as arrogant as you always were, just as greedy, just as lustful. You just found different ways to express it. You have this experience to kind of validate all this to other people, and you kind of you're a dork now. Honestly, you're stupid. You sound stupid. Like I hate to say it, but like you're just really you're not making any sense. And to me, like the spiritual virtues that you seem to have, like now you're implementing onto other people. Like I understand. Like in fact, we've all kind of been through a phase like that. But it's very important to move on. It's very important to move on and now understand, because I truly believe this, and I've experienced this. Each substance, or maybe all substances, there is something that you need to learn from it if you're going to go down that road. I don't think everybody needs it, but I think if you chose it, it called to you. I don't think there's a reason to discard that it called to you. Go have the experience. There's nothing good or bad about it. It just is what it is. There is some fundamental message that's coming here. And it's probably not about your traumas and your things. Those need to be cleared. That's the medicine part. Clear, purge, get everything out of your system. Feel at least free and balanced again. In that balance, there's some message that's not coming from the psychedelics. It's coming from you. The psychedelics brought it out to the surface temporarily. It's telling you need to do something. You need to go in a certain direction. There's some essence, there's some substance in life that you need to kind of get the nectar of and live through it. If you get that part, it's done. You should part ways and move on from there. Don't let this become a cyclical process. And this is where I see people mess up. They go, they have their retreat, they do the thing, they come out of it, on the high horse, everything's good. You kind of get into maybe a new relationship and everything starts going well. The same patterns start repeating themselves. I'm on a low again, go do the substance again. Now I feel free again. Everything's new, fresh perspective, fresh relationship, fresh, I need to stop this job, move to this place. Same thing. Different color, same pattern. Go back again. And you see people in these loops. Each time you do the whatever it is you took, it's less and less potent in its ability to connect with you and give you this message. Every time you water it down more and more to a point where it becomes so cyclical and you don't even know how to get the message anymore. I think that's the harm, is now you don't even have the ability, because now you're chasing the post high of the experience. You're chasing the thrill of the reflection, and you become a drug addict, not to the substance, to what the substance brings out of you. Now you're stuck. Now you're stuck in a real web, and all this community of people around you are validating this more and more, because everybody's stuck in this loop. You got to get out of this loop. You can't get stuck in this thing, because it's just another pit. It doesn't matter if it feels better. Maybe it's better than where you were. That's an argument to make. Maybe you were in such a dark, kind of boring, bland rut. Maybe this rut has more color, more music, more community, more tribalism, but it's still a limitation. It's still a bondage in another way, and it's not real spiritual work. Like, let's call it what it is. Let's stop lying to ourselves. I actually don't see as much of a problem in lying to others. It's when you start fooling yourself. Why are you lying to yourself? That's so harmful. That's where the real, that's the delusion can go so rooted, when you start lying to yourself about where you are with things.
Wait, hold on. Let's go back there. All right. So lying to others is I mean, that's a whole nother conversation, but lying to others, I think everyone's a bunch of liars, if we're being honest with you. And if we're being honest, everyone lies about everything. Some people who say they're telling the truth, I know, are just blatant liars. Yeah.
And fine. If you want to lie to other people, fine. You shouldn't, but fine.
You shouldn't, but I think if we're being completely honest, man, that it's like, oh, bro, you're saying lying is okay? Or you in a relationship and you're lying to people? I white lie all the time.
I'm saying it's okay to lie as long as you still know what the truth is. You know what I mean? Like, at least there's somewhere to go from there. Stop lying. Now you're just with the truth.
Well, don't lie. I guess if we were just gonna say that, obviously I'm not gonna harp on this, but don't lie to. I would say just don't lie to hurt others. Obviously, white lies and stuff like that. Don't maliciously lie to hurt others or be malicious and harmful. If we're gonna
definitely not
lie, that's all. Some people go and they'll lie to significant others and they'll cheat on. And obviously,
wrong.
Also wrong, right? Don't do that. That's not advice to do. But if she's working out and maybe she ain't lose no weight, baby, you looking good. You're looking good, you know? And listen, you're killing it, and I support you.
So that's surface example, and I get what you're saying, but now
I genuinely mean it.
Look when we pull this into deep waters, this subject of what you just said, like giving someone a lie, like about spirituality, about the mind, about the ego, about who you are, what you know, and that you see this a lot with these, fake gurus and cult leaders, and even these kind of retreat. I don't even know what to call them. People are just running retreats and stuff like that. Like they lie about their accomplishments. They lie about their virtues. They lie about the wisdom because they're regurgitating stuff they heard elsewhere.
Yeah.
And maybe they had experiences that kind of gave them something to hold against it, but they don't really, because you talk to them. Like when you talk to someone, ask enough questions and really watch them in their act and their practice, you can see when someone's full of shit, right? Now, to me, the most, I would say, devastating versions of those people full of shit is when I can see they're lying to themselves. You believe what you're saying, and it doesn't make any sense, and you don't make any sense, and your actions and your words are different. Like there's just a mess here.
There's the ego
Psychedelics can cause this in people, and I don't think enough people are talking about that. I don't think people are talking about how it can damage the ego more than it can help it if you don't know the whole process, not just the experience itself. There is a whole process to this, it's hard because we're looking at ancient history and literature when we look at this, but so much of religious documentation from ancient cultures talk about substances. They talk about psychedelics, and this is not just one, almost all of them. Some kind of something. Now, some are specific about what they used. Some are vague about what it was that they were using, but something was being used. And even in yogic scriptures and in Vedic scriptures and stuff like that, they talk about substances. They talk about herbs, and they're not specific, again, on what it is, but it's acknowledged. There is usage. It's possible. It's not recommended or spoken against.
Is alcohol a substance?
It's definitely a substance. I personally do not think it has much validity in addressing these kind of deeper spiritual and kind of psychological, energetic conundrums. I think, if at all, it can maybe loosen you up because it reduces your kind of your fear receptors, right? So you're not as nervous or as on edge or afraid of something. So I get it could take the edge off something. As a substance itself, it's pretty much only harmful. There's no real safe amount of alcohol. You can tolerate it, but even a drop of it just starts doing damage, right? Cellular damage. Yes, you can recover, and if you're healthy, sure, you can handle it, but there's no real safe amount, and there's no real benefit to the experience itself. It's more numbing. And so, yeah, it's a substance, but I wouldn't put it in the category of, just using these kind of plant medicine as you phrased it.
Right. So take alcohol out of it. When you're in this phase and you're coming out of, this experience, I feel like that's exactly where I am. I'm in integration. I'm in an integration phase. What's that mean? I've experienced this thing. I was there. I could articulate and tell you exactly what I've seen and exactly what it meant, and it would just sound bizarre. Mm-hmm. It would probably sound bizarre. But for me, it was very real. It was a very real experience, very real from a feeling state. So the feeling state, I can't articulate my story. I think there's certain stories that one's just meant for, my pillow talk, if you will. But that feeling state's with me. As clear as I'm talking to you now is as clear as that moment was, and those moments and experiences were for me. What happens after that? What do you do? For me, every day I wake up, I have this feeling. And that I experience this thing now. Every day I wake up, I open my eyes, I go to sleep. Something's different. There's something different because I have something and I lost something. Mm-hmm. Good and bad. So the some of the bad stuff, left it there. Some of the good, I got that.
Yeah.
And it gave me more. That's me. Now, every day I wake up, I understand that. I have that piece with me. Okay, what am I doing with it? Am I just thinking, cool, this is a
How do
cool
I
experience.
implement the experience?
Let me go and just talk to everybody about it.
Yeah.
Let me say, hey, bro, I'm recruiting you. I had this experience. No, bro, I've been very much to myself, and I'm slowly every day just working on those things. Every day. Just working on those things every day. Why? Because that is why I went there. That's why I went there. There's not anyone or anything could tell me otherwise. It just is. It is what it is. It is the journey of self, and I've done those things, and I will continue to do those things. Now, do I go and talk to everybody about it? I don't. I don't say that about anything. I talk to you, and I thought this was an important conversation to have. The integration of those things for me they look different. One is a health. I'm working more on my health. A year ago, my Achilles tore. During my experience, my back went out. Dude, my back went out at 3 o'clock in the morning. I woke up just electrocuted. Oh, bro, painful.
What a time for that to happen.
And I just started smiling. I just started laughing to myself because in that moment, I was going through my fears. In my mind, I was going through all of my fears, and I was trying to dig out all of them. One of my fears, though, this was to be on a mountain in the middle of a country, in my back wall. that was actually one of my fears because it's I plan on hiking,
and you figured it out, right? What a thing to learn.
It was a physical thing. It was definitely physical. But it gave me that, and it gave me that, but also it gave me an understanding as to that moment and everything else that led up to that moment, everything else that's leading after that moment. So that's one small physical one. I have those on the spiritual and also on like the emotional side of it. I have all of these little things, big things that have happened. Now, what am I doing with that information? Well, I'm trying to put that into my daily life to walk that path better. I eat pretty healthy. I have a healthy diet and what have you. But I realized that
you always did.
I did, but I realized this past year, I took my foot off the gas as far as training because I didn't want to be heavy. I didn't want to be in that part, but I knew I was going to come up on this kind of time, this goal line, if you will. And that is going to be to level up because I have compensated very heavily on my left side. My left side is a lot stronger than my right side. My left leg had some atrophy, so it's a little bit smaller, a little weaker. My hips tilted, my shoulders are off. I have a strained neck right now. Dude, what'd you say? Oh, bro, it's been a hell of a journey. I've been pulling muscles for about a month straight. It's not an exaggeration. I just started walking again after, my back went out like 3 weeks ago, something like that, and now my neck's going out. My lower back has been extremely tight because my hips are off, and my entire kinetic system's essentially a mess. Doesn't feel good at all, bro. Oh, it's so frustrating because my muscle memory and it's there. It's there. Everything I know the program. I know how to do the program. I know how to do the diet. I know how to show up every single day. Every single day I show up and I go through this program. Something may or may not get tweaked. Something may or may not work. And then I got to wait, got to do the whole process. And then I got to show back up and do it again and do it again. Why? Because I know there's a window. I have this window that I got to get, the strength back in my leg and my kinetic system back up and running so I'm balanced and I have the strength. Long story short, it's all part of it. It's all part of it, and it's my personal journey. It's just my personal journey, right? So whoever is going through something, maybe someone has cancer.
Yeah,
I don't have cancer. But maybe someone does, and maybe they're going through this experience, and they would. I'm not saying go and do that. I'm saying, but every experience, maybe someone's in deep depression.
Yeah,
maybe someone has extreme anxiety. Maybe someone is clinically schizophrenic. Maybe there's a lot of these situations that people go into and come out of, and they have to do this work of integration of trying to take these lessons and integrate them into their lives.
So let's talk about the integration, because I think this is also important to have insight on what that is. So I would say, to use like an analogy, right, for the integration, let's say we understand our mind, our emotions, and I would even say our identity, you know, I don't want to even use the word ego. I just want to say identity and our attachment to it give us a certain perspective of reality, right? So think of it like we're looking at the world through this glass, but it's kind of like a translucent, frosted type of glass, right? We can't really see see clearly, but this is just what we feel like the world looks like. And this is what our mind and our emotions and our ego or identity does to us. You have this experience. This experience is almost like wiping the glass clean, transparent again. It was just condensation. It wasn't actually frosted. You see that for once. Everything seems clear. Everything, you see it as it is. You see life as it is. You see yourself as it is, your body, your mind, your emotions, others, the world, consciousness, God, heaven, whatever concepts you have in your head, you see as it is for its reality and for its delusion. Then you come out of it. Now the integration part comes in. This is where we understand that this glass that we're looking through will constantly be refrosted with some kind of condensation every day. That's the nature of the mind. It's the nature of the emotions. It's the nature of it's the side effect and the byproduct of our life. The spiritual processes, the integration is learning to wipe this clean constantly. Every time it accumulates, we wipe it so we can continue to see it clearly. How do you do this? That's understanding these factors that come into play that creates these delusions we have about life. That means we have to be actively and avidly working on the impact and influence the mind has over our experience of life. Constantly working on our emotional intelligence. Understanding a little distance from our identity and our ego. We're not so attached to it. This gives us a little bit of freedom and room to integrate what you're saying. That is basically what we're trying to hold. These things don't just happen because you talked about them. They don't happen because you addressed them or somebody said it and it made sense. Now it's done. This takes daily work. You used your body as an example. Your imbalances, your atrophies, all these things are going to fix themselves. Just because you acknowledged it does not mean the solution was implemented. You still got to show up every day to the gym. You got to roll out your mat. You got to do your stretching. You got to take your supplements. You got to get your nutrition in. It takes work every day. So does the mind. So do the emotions. So does the identity. And these things gave you a moment and an opportunity to finally see this glass is not permanently frosted. It just was for so long that you believe that this is just how it is. But the implementation of it is just realizing this. So what are those practices? There's many. When you realize that there's work to do, you can do this with practices of breathing. You can do this with practices of meditation, practices of asanas, stretches, understanding, studying the kind of energetic networks throughout the body and how the mind, identifying the patterns of your own mind. Like this is where yoga was big for me, is learning this process of even what they call vichara, self-observation, keen, intense self-observation. Know your patterns, know your tendencies, know your inclinations towards personal to you. Not general, everybody, you. What do you have tendencies to do? When you recognize that, you'll start to see how you frost your own glass. And then you just know how to wipe it. Not go back, do psychedelics again to wipe it clean. See, this is, you don't get in this loop. You can do this, but maybe it was hard before to conceptualize it, to go do these practices by yourself. Maybe you just needed this context of what it is to see life through a clear glass for once. Then the daily work comes in. That's implementation. And this is where people always fall short. Usually, like they're not ready to go straight into the discipline of it after that. They feel like it's over. And this is where the real change comes. This is where these things are so powerful and sacred in so many ways. They gave you perspective. They gave you an understanding. They showed you the thing. They showed you the glass being wiped, how the world and everything seems clean and clear, how so much attachment to the identity is just toxic to your experience of life, how constantly thinking and overthinking and just this fixation on thoughts and conceptualizing or criticizing or whatever you're doing, fucking with your mind over all the time, whatever you're busy doing, it's creating toxicity. It's adding to the condensation on that glass, right? The emotions that are felt, the reactiveness, the victimism that we all kind of lean towards in some way or another. Most of us have some way of finding out how we're the victim of life, right? It's creating more condensation on the glass. Find ways, tools, techniques, tactics, whatever you do, of how to implement a discipline into your everyday life. Very important, everyday life. You woke up today, before you go back to sleep, something must happen. Some activity must have taken, intentional practice must happen that works so that you have this. And you'll notice your life just feels better. You know, you don't need to go back to medicine anymore because you're not sick. How do you keep yourself preventative from going back into these ruts? Just like we said, identify, see what's happening. Then we have implementation. Otherwise, you're going to go into loops. Like anybody that thinks they're not going to go into loops again, it's just silly. You're just saying silly stuff. And if you want to do that, that's fine. Please don't encourage other people to not have to do the work and just keep going back to the psychedelics and wear loose pants and put on beads and do whatever you got to do and just have nothing, no substance to apply, and definitely no substance to offer value to others. Then you're a problem more than you're a solution to yourself and others.
Yeah. And if you are seeking, you are emotional, which a lot of people are. And myself included, the first time I've done it, I was extremely emotional. But I made sure I went to a place that was credentially, within my comfort zone. I did my homework and found the right place that felt good. I met the people. I went down the rabbit hole of understanding that this is the right way of doing something. It's like finding the best trainer for a program that you want to start. That's how I felt. And it was. It was. I'm so thankful because I've heard so many horror stories since then of people getting the complete opposite or experiences after that from the people that I went with that had other experiences that were so thankful for being in there as well. They were like, "Oh my God, this is the second time I did it, but this is nothing like the first time. First time was horrific. Here's why." I was, "Oh my God, I don't know. I wish I would. I wish I would never hear that because I wouldn't ever want to do that ever. That sounds miserable. The most miserable experience you could think of going into something like that." So it's very important. It's very important to have a place where you feel comfortable, and this is also reputable. And the people are reputable in that experience. These are shaman masters that understand this. The indigenous masters of medicine.
Yeah,
they're doctors of herbal medicine.
And if they're legitimate, they should be coming from a long lineage of shamans that they're supposed to be trained priests.
Yep.
That's what this is supposed to be.
Yep.
And if this is not a trained priest that understands the spiritual, psychological, emotional, energetic dimension that is opened with this substance, you're just left to your own luck at that point, and that's why it's important. And this is just the ayahuasca substance, because that's what they use. But then you go into things like psilocybin mushrooms, and it's just growing on the ground. Anybody could pick it up and eat it, and it may have one effect or another. And maybe there's no real priest-like culture around that thing. So it's not just one substance. And this is, we can't also blame other people, retreats. Everyone's trying to make a buck. Everyone's trying to be something in this world. And I can't sit here and be like, okay, it's the responsibility of other people and the retreat should be run right. It's very unrealistic to expect that to be done. This is where it's important that you be responsible for yourself. You observe yourself. If you have the experience and you see something that's profound and deep, you check yourself from there, watch your patterns, take it as an opportunity, and you know that, everyone's not always in your best interest. I've seen so many people that do this experience, get involved in teaching about it, and they start their own little kind of cult circle because people are vulnerable when they're under the influence of something like this as well. Especially if there's one of their first times, they're very confused. What is real? What is not? And when someone comes and they know how to play the part and say the right things, they can really pull a lot of the focus of this experience onto themselves. And it's such a shame.
Sounds like a cult.
It is. It's the beginning of a cult because they have this weird kind of God complex. They didn't do the work. They didn't do the work. Their ego got re-enhanced by some experience, and now the validation from it comes when others validate it. Wow, you're such a wise leader and stuff like that. But you're giving people a substance taking advantage of the vulnerability they're having under the substance, and again creating a cult or some kind of thing. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen out in the world. You need to be, as the individual, as the experiencer, you need to start taking responsibility, especially if you're gonna get involved in things like this. Please don't expect the shaman to have it all figured out. Whoever, I hope they do, and I hope you're lucky. Wherever you go, that you're around trained, experienced, and well-intending individuals that are going to guide you through this process. But if that's not the case, you got to know what you're doing. Like you said, making sure it's reputable. And even then, you may have gone to that place. You don't know that next week they're going to switch out the people. And now the person that was there while you were there is not the person there. That could change the whole thing for somebody else. You know what I mean? And maybe someone talked to you a certain way that they would not talk to somebody else a certain way. You know, there's so many kind of details that can all go. That's why I really also want to say, like, getting into something like this takes a lot of bravery. It takes a lot of bravery because not only can the people or the environment or everything around it crack you, the substance can crack you. There's so much of a possibility of things going wrong. And even if they don't, you have to be willing to die. You may not, depending on what you do, of course, but you probably will be okay. There's very obviously exceptions, depending on pre-existing health issues, but you'll most likely be okay in terms of death. But you're gonna be convinced you've died. I know what that feels like. I know other people go through it. There are going to be times where you are 100% sure during this experience that you're dead. The ego with all that stuff for that moment is far gone. That's why you got to see consciousness and life and connection, because you're outside of yourself. That died. Now you wake back up into the experience and you have this kind of residual kind of post-trip experience, and that's where we're talking about the integration part needs to come in. I saw beyond death. At least in an experience, I saw beyond the mind, beyond the ego, beyond the identity. And if I implement this, and if I understand its lesson, if I see what this was trying to show me, if I see my issues, if I see how my mind's impacting my body so deeply and causing me so much illness, and I see how my body's illnesses may be impacting my mind, and they're creating a loop amongst themselves and pushing me back into a cycle. If I see it, maybe I can break it. I can see maybe the traumas and the genetic nonsense I've pulled in through my family or through my genetic bloodline. Just all this stuff you can get a chance to see. You got to be able to be willing to accept this. You got to be able to accept where you might have been wrong about things. You might have seen things wrong. This is bravery. You can't expect a substance to take on this responsibility for you, and having this lazy mindset that a lot of people do. It's misuse. It's almost disrespect to the substance, because I know that these things are sacred in some way, like they sacred in the sense that they have the ability to pull you out of all the toxic sludge that you're living in. That is what a religion is supposed to do before it gets corrupted. Any spiritual path is supposed to do before it gets corrupted. The purity of this was to pull you out of this, and that's all that was really needed to get you out of this. See life for what it is, see yourself for what it is, see the delusion, see the reality, implement that into your life, become a better person, a better human being. See that service to others is service to yourself. You're not
just love.
It's just love. And you're not different. The fact that you think this human being that you're seeing is different from you is because you're still in the body, you're still in the senses, you're still in the mind, in the ego, especially in the ego. And that's why you think that's me and them. So if you feel like you're helping somebody with something and you're doing them a favor, you don't get it yet. Like you just don't understand it yet, and you're helping yourself. That is you.
But they haven't repaid it yet, man. I'm still waiting. It's just I feel some type of way because it wasn't reciprocated, right? And the expectation, ego,
it's nonsense.
It's nonsense. And in those moments, surrender is a very, you say bravery. It's a necessity. It's a necessity 100%. Going into that.
100%.
Just surrender. You say be willing to die. Yeah, I agree with you.
Unafraid, because what is death? What is the fear of death other than your attachment to life?
Oh, right? It's so funny. I can laugh at this now. I say I've died and my egos have died. Dude, I've had so many different deaths, alive and not alive, if that makes sense. Like like alive by not being in like a state of an altered reality, whatever you want to call it. I've definitely died in those moments. Now physically, I was still here, but I feel there's a death. There's a death. Has the ego died? It evolved, but versions died for sure, and.
Like shedding a skin.
Exactly. Layers are just ripped away. A layer, a mask, ripped away. And until you're just bare bones or bare soul, whatever you want to say.
The ego is not going anywhere. People got to get this out of their head.
No, you're there.
There's very few human beings that have ever walked this planet.
The observer.
That has accomplished the ability to completely disintegrate and dissolve the ego and live through pure consciousness. We should know, maybe on one hand, throughout human history, have there been people we can count that have really experienced this. So for the rest of us, let's be honest with ourselves. Yeah. The ego is going nowhere.
Nowhere.
It must be trained, it must be adjusted, and it must be accommodated so that it can provide to you an experience of life that does not create delusions and confusions about what is real and what is not. Mm-hmm. If it takes the lead role, if it's driving the car and you're just in the back seat, you will run into problems because it starts serving itself and not you. You're just watching. You're just watching all of this happen, and it go through these cycles and go do all this stuff in the world, and it's dragging you along. That's a problem. So identifying what it really is, and maybe we can do another episode at some point on what is the ego really, because I find that fascinating. That was the biggest lesson in my yogic experience, just understanding before we start all the work, before we start getting into the sadhanas of correcting the behavior and the tendencies and the vasanas and all that, as we call them, getting into all this, first let's see it for what it is. Let's stop saying ego means arrogance, because that's now we're already, if I'm not being arrogant, I don't have an ego. Well, then great. We got nothing to do, right? You're already on the top of the world. No. Ego is our identity. It's who we are to the world, and how we feel like we're separate, how we feel like we have our own unique experience, which is temporary. It's a temporary, unique experience. It's not to be looked down upon and create inner conflict because of that. It's to understand that this has its uses. It has its important uses. And it can also have illnesses like the body can, right? It can have sicknesses and illnesses, and it can be tuned incorrectly so that we have conflict in our lives.
The ego's a fighter, bro.
It's a fighter. It doesn't want to go anywhere.
It's a very...
And it's manipulative and it's tricky. Not just a fighter, it's very tricky.
Just an outright liar. That motherfucker's a liar, bro. And here's the thing. That was a lie. And when you surrender, to be able to surrender and just because sometimes you gotta let your ego show you, and then you still gotta take the perspective as the observer as your ego's running.
Yep.
Observe,
100%.
Ego runs. You're still observing, you gotta surrender.
Yeah.
You surrender, watch. Be the watcher. What are you showing me?
Yep.
Realize that's also not you. It's you.
It's yours, but not you.
Exactly.
And there's a difference there.
And as an observer, what is that showing you? Can you sit there and not judge? And could you sit there and watch without...
Who's judging? The ego.
Who? The observer.
Observer can't. The ego can judge. The ego has the mind.
I mean, not judge, but watch. Watch.
Yeah, the observer it only observes. It doesn't care what you do.
Correct.
It just watches.
But it could watch.
But what we are watching is determined by the ego, right? So for example, if someone has a very expensive watch, look at my nice watch, and everyone wants to see it, well, we'll say, oh, look what an ego this person has, because he wants everyone to think he has an expensive watch. And he takes off his expensive watch and he puts on a quartz crystal bracelet to enhance his love life and not care about expensive material things anymore. That's the same thing. It's maybe the intention has changed. I can definitely admire the shift in focus, but are we going to say you don't have an ego because you have beads on your wrist instead of a Rolex? Come on, let's stop doing this to ourselves. This is still the ego. Its intentions have changed. Its ideas have changed. Its necessities of what it wants to be seen as have changed. Good. That's good. It's in the right direction. Maybe one day you don't even need the bracelet. Now you only put things on that are very symbolic, have certain implementations, have certain structure to them, and they have energetic applications. That evolves, but that's also still for the ego, right? So and it's good. It's good that it's going through these processes. It's an evolution process. Eventually, none of it will matter, right? Once you reach that destination. But let's understand this is all the ego. This whole thing is the ego. The psychedelics are experienced in many ways by the ego. The residue and the residuals of the experience are to be tackled with through the ego, and harmony through all our faculties, harmony through our experience, understanding this is all ours to manage. Maybe we didn't know this before. Maybe we didn't know ego, mind, intellect, all these things we got to figure out. Now we know. This is our responsibility to have these things all correctly tuned in the right way, in the right place. The quality of your life, the love you live it with, the compassion, the understanding, it's not a need, it's not a service to others, just the selflessness that will develop from that, just as a consequence of the way you've tuned yourself. You'll see. You'll feel this is a better way to live. This is how I want to live. This is how I want to experience my life. The ego is now better tuned at this point, as you're experiencing, to create a quality and joyful and pleasant and even a spiritually intense life for the observer to observe. That's what we're really trying to do here, is we want to give a good experience to be observed and learned from, so that now we're not sitting in misery because of all the tools we have to live life with. This is the problem. This is back to the beginning of this conversation. Plant medicine for what? For sickness. Sickness is where? In these faculties of ourselves. And they're not us, they're ours. And the fact that we have confused ourselves that these things are us is the sickness. That's where the problem is. And because I think I am my mind, I think I am my ego, any problem with the ego is a problem with me.
I am my body. Yeah, I agree.
I'm sick.
Yes.
How? You're not sick. That is sick. The thing you have is sick.
Yeah.
Fix it. Your ankle snapped or your back threw out. Fix it. You don't have aren't in pain. Your body's in pain. You suffer if you want. That's your choice. That's your business.
I'm here with you, bro.
Exactly. But if you choose not to suffer, you just fix your body. That's it. It's a problem. Yeah, it hurts and all, but that's how you know there's a problem.
Dude, it's all part of it, and that's a fantastic point. And points is that is where we are in 2025. Discussing plant medicine. So where does plant medicine go? Dude, I'm starting to see personally a huge curiosity. I don't know, maybe it's our generation. I
think it's not just plant medicine. I think we're seeing a upsurge in spiritual curiosity. And I think, at least I see that. I think plant medicine or psychedelics are a tool of exploration of that. And dare I also say, even though a lot of people are going to be mad I say this, it's a lazy approach as well. To some, not all, but to some, it's I want more spirituality in my life. Let me take a substance, get a quick little bump of it, and move on with my life. And I think for those that are doing that have really missed the purpose.
Ozempic?
Perfect example. It's spiritual Ozempic.
Ozempic.
With no work, no nothing, just take the thing, get your result, and move on.
And to be clear, I'm not coming at anybody who's on Ozempic. However, some people don't need Ozempic. Some people don't. Some people do, and it has helped other people.
If you're close to death,
diabetes.
If you're severely suffering something and you need intervention, it is a blessing of modern medicine that we are developing these things.
And I agree with that completely.
Me too.
I just noticed that people,
if you're taking because you don't like the way you look, I'm going to say that if you deprive yourself of the experience of going through the work, the discipline, the grind of correcting your eating habits and working out every day, you do something that you didn't want to do until you love it. That is invaluable. You cannot put a price on that.
Oh, and bro, you can. Whatever the price of a subscription of Ozempic is, and I'm watching people who never went to the gym, who've never worked out, shed a bunch of pounds as if they did. To say, I lost weight too, and I've been killing.
Very good example, because I see that people do the same thing with psychedelics.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm more spiritual. I'm more wise. I'm more this. I'm like,
it.
dude, you come on, man.
I think there's more education being had, and also more misinformation now more than ever.
Yeah.
So as you get more information, we have the world in our fingertips, literally. I could pick up my phone and say, ChatGPT, let's talk about this, and we could have a conversation. That's where we are in 25.
Yeah.
2025. That's where we're at. We have so much advancement. However, we have a lot of misinformation.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people that are also have malintent that want to use that for the benefits, and make a bunch of money off of that, whether it be through cultish programs and taking advantage of people's emotional states. That exists as well. Be very careful. So there are pros and cons. I'm seeing pros and cons in something that could be so beneficial to society. So with plant medicine specifically, in the direction of where this is going, where do you see the future of plant medicine? Personally, I think this is just me. I think it's definitely on the uptick, because I think our generation is seeking, and by our generation, I'm a millennial. I'm assuming you're a millennial as well. As millennials, let's not get crazy, boomers or Gen Zs or anybody. We accept diversity inclusion. We accept everybody.
I'll be honest. I actually don't know I don't know all of them.
Good. As well as it doesn't even matter, because we're all people and it's all love.
Yeah.
That's at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's about healing, and it's about evolving each other. So none of those matter. But as a millennial, speaking as a millennial, I say that, all right?
You love that you're a millennial.
well,
I'm real proud.
Well, I only say that because there's a data. I'm a subcategory, so are you, and there's a lot of data that support millennials.
Okay.
So one of those is that we're seeking. I'm identifying with this group. Seeking alternative medicine and solutions, also more holistic, outside of already established means of health and medicine. So, for example, we're talking about ways to treat depression.
Yeah.
People want other holistic avenues outside of just go to the gym and eat healthy. Clearly that's the solution. Go for a walk, bro, every day.
Mm-hmm.
You win. How many people really want to go for a walk every day? For 30 minutes. It's been 30 minutes.
I definitely do.
I love it. One
of my most favorite things to do in the world is walking.
And that's why we're having this conversation, because I love it too. But I know a lot of most don't. Most don't, because life is busy, bro. Life, you don't understand. You don't understand my life. I've got kids. I've got a bad back. I haven't,
I have a long list of reasons as to why I cannot.
I'll tell you them all. Just grab a pen, bro.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So before you go and put yourself in my shoes,
you don't know.
You don't know. Okay, cool. I get that. As medicine evolves, there's more things that are coming into, preventative medicine, and the word medicine is changing. I think people want alternative medicines. They want alternative solutions, holistic medicine, things that I think outside of the current norm. People I think are skeptical. Millennials I think are skeptical of current systems. I mean, I understand. I mean,
I do too. As am I.
There's a lot. Health is one of these subjects, and not to get off subject, but health is one of these subjects where, as I understand what health is and what health is not, it is helping me understand that there's a lot of resources that I'm just trying to make sense of it. Where preventative medicine, there's a lot of resources out there in this world that aren't go-to medicines because some people can't afford it, or it's not in insurance, or it's not covered by so-and-so health plan, so you don't get it. But it's there, and it could help, and maybe it's a herbal medicine. Maybe it is a plant medicine. There's great supplements, but they're not being pushed by marketing. They're not being pushed and saying, oh, we got to talk about this. This is amazing. This might help you, and this might have way less side effects than this over here.
I think it would make more sense for someone that's driven by profit to address things at the consequence or the symptom level and not the root level, because then you have a repeated customer. Like if you have depression, for example, and you're giving someone medication that treats the symptoms of their depression, but not the root cause.
Chill, bro. You're making too much sense right now.
Well,
you're making sense. And
shoot me for making sense, and then you might try. But if you're addressing the root, you have a lifetime customer, because they don't want to feel the symptoms and the consequences of their depression. So anything that suppresses it is what they want. Addressing it at the root cause, you lose your customer, right? And I think that's what you're talking about when people are looking for alternatives. I think what they're looking for is to tackle things at the root, not at the surface level. There's a root reality. So to answer your initial question, there is, where do I see it going? I see these substances have always existed. They existed before humans probably existed. I mean, I'm sure they existed in the wild at some. I'm sure animals have. There's actually plenty of evidence to say animals have also figured out how to use substances for whatever experiences they're having.
Yeah, for sure.
And it'll always exist. Now, it can exist as a tool of exploration spiritually. I also think it'll exist, and as research is coming along, to treat depression and many kind of mental ailments at possibly their root cause. And I'm actually not against that. I'm not like I really do see that if someone's really, really struggling with severe depression or some kind of like mental, or some ailment on the mental realm or even the emotional realm, some traumas of some kind, I understand intervention with these substances could provide enough perspective to fight through it, enough clarity on what really is going on. And I think that's enough sometimes for someone to see so many people live in this, they just don't even know why. Why do I feel this way? What's going on? Why am I imbalanced? And what do I really need to do? And, the more people go through it, they see that, you're just become another customer for people that want to make money. No one really cares that you get better. And I see these possibly becoming an intervention to get people on the right track. And maybe someone who hasn't felt good in years and years and years, just one simple, and there's also research to provide this, one single trip on psilocybin mushrooms or even ayahuasca, whatever, can fix somebody for many months, 6 months to a year. And I remember reading something about this, on just by shifting their perspective, treating addictions and things like that. It just shows you what's happening.
So I agree with you, and I think I understand what you're trying to say, because I think I've also read something very similar. And what happens essentially is your brain and your neurochemistry does a reboot. And a lot on your left side of your hemisphere and the right side of your hemisphere, they both essentially stop. They don't stop, but they both start to fire. And they both start to fire in a way that was never firing before. So new neural pathways are created in that moment.
Yes.
Real time.
To your point there, because we also talked about implementing, right? Integration. So
in implementation thing.
Implementing or integrating, whatever. It opens up and loosens your neuroplasticity. This is research. This is understood by modern science. Now, the ability to form new patterns, new structures, new thought patterns, emotional patterns, habits is you're more able to do this when the influence of this has been brought into you.
Exactly.
Now, that's bad if your habits are bad, right? You left this trip, loosened your neuroplasticity, but then got into bad habits again. You've further strengthened your bullshit. So to know that's a good opportunity, but also a terrible consequence if you don't understand this. So treating it for depression, treating it for anxiety, giving yourself that opportunity to see things as they are, create an opportunity for more neuroplasticity, and implementing structure that can pull you out of it. I see that being a possibility of its future going forward.
I like that. The post-integration programs.
Good.
Right? I feel like that would be a good...
I don't see any negative thing to allow that to be available to people as a way to explore their...
Tomorrow, now.
Yeah. So if people have these things to explore, get yourself back on track, get yourself back to a place where you're at least leveled again. And then if there is the desire, as there should be in you, to further explore yourself and life, you can't do that starting with depression and anxiety and all. You can't do that when you're sick. So then the conversation changes. Plant medicine means you go to when you're sick. You don't go to medicine if you're not sick. But if you're not sick, and these are an opportunity to explore yourself further, also a good thing that should be available to people.
Preventative medicine is what we're talking about.
Preventative and explorative. It's not by coincidence that we're able to take this kind of substance and unleash this vast, expansive experience of consciousness and beyond. That can't be. That's also nature's communication with you of giving you some kind of option to break these barriers and structures and self-imposed illnesses that we've brought inside of our system. So that's not by coincidence. I think they'll always exist. I think they always should exist. And I think our understanding is increasing over time. The research is increasing over time. Our understanding of how they should be used. I do think the kind of, post-trip kind of silly culture that absorbs. I don't think that'll be a long. I mean, I might be wrong. We'll see, but I think eventually we'll kind of correct path on that, or maybe there'll always be silly people just trying to create a phase out of something. It's fine. If they're not harming anybody, whatever. But as an individual, right? Because in a way, we're sitting there, we're doing a podcast, we're talking to an individual listener. Everyone's listening as an individual, even if they're sitting together. So as an individual, as a seeker, as an explorer, as somebody that's interested in something, always take personal responsibility, educate yourself properly, know the risks, know the rewards, know the whys, know the hows, get this stuff all in order, be brave, be willing to push yourself into experiences that are uncomfortable, and more importantly, be willing to do the work that is important to bring the change you're looking for. You have to be willing to do this work. There is nothing more important than that. And if you can put those things in place, it's a blessing that this thing is available for you. If it comes into your path, and if it doesn't come into your path, it's a blessing that it was available to somebody else that might have disrupted your path if they were in their own nonsense. So it's good that it's out there. And like I said, use everything responsibly, educate yourself, and the world will probably be better for it.
I think the world definitely would be a better place. And I think as we continue to share more of these experiences and our personal experiences, like you said, this comes from personal experience. For me, I've always been a personal seeker of that experience, of that knowledge. And there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of bad information out there. So to continue to share stories and continue to be open, and to your point, be brave. To be brave to share your light, because I think that light is the thing that helps other people kind of navigate through dark times. And even if that looks messy and that looks shitty and that looks like it won't help anybody, maybe you're just in your own headspace and you're just like, maybe this will help somebody, maybe it won't. Maybe, I don't know. That all of that right there, too much. Too much. Just be and be with love, and that right there will be the answer regardless. And as you do and continue to go on your growth, your growth journey of health, and whether it be psychedelics, whether it be plant medicine, herbal medicine, any medicine in general, be careful. Be careful. You said a lot of powerful things in this episode. We talked about, Ozempic. We talked about these things that were so quickly pulled into society and forced upon people, but yet none of those. I'm not seeing people being forced to do mushroom strips, but I know the world would be a better place if they did, because everyone would essentially know themselves better. I think conversations like these are much needed, because it is these conversations that just help people feel heard and feel understood. Dude, if I were to go and tell anybody, but bro, I did this thing, then you fucking junkie. Yeah. Whoa, it's not at all.
We need to lose the stigma around it as well.
There's a stigma,
it's not
bro.
well placed.
There's a stigma of people who do mushrooms as a hippie.
Yeah.
There's stigmas as people who do these things are like, you must do a bunch of drugs. Not at all, bro. Not at all. I don't smoke. I don't drink. People smoke cigarettes every day, but I could get judged. And for this day and age, bro, I don't give any
people are gonna
fucks.
judge for everything.
I don't. Zero fucks. I give zero fucks. Why? Because just walking in your truth, and I think you walk in your truth. That's where the comfort is. Mm-hmm. You go and you be the best version of yourself, and that can only be done by you walking in your thing. Yeah. You walking in your thing. regardless of whatever that means. So from a stigma standpoint, when you said that, the thing that was going through my mind is all my experiences were never anything related to hippie anything or drug seeking anybody.
Yeah.
There's not a bunch of people seeking drugs. These are all my experiences were all with high professionals in very successful careers. That was one of the biggest ahas for me. It's like, man, these are very, very smart people that are also professionals like me seeking information.
Yeah.
Doctors,
Yeah.
CEOs, multimillionaires and entrepreneurs. Some were nurses. Some people were between jobs, and some people had some really bad depressions, but they were also very successful and owned ranches. People would be like, "Bro, that's not the profile."
Yeah.
When I think of when I went into this experience, I had a profile, an expectation, a stigma.
Yeah.
I was like, maybe it's gonna be like a one of these like fancy whatever concerts, and there's like a rape.
Yeah.
None of that. None of it. It's just conversations like this, and everyone was on their own journey. That to me was such a fascinating thing.
Yeah.
It was a fascinating thing because it was like, oh my God, I was judging these people. I was judging, and I didn't know I was judging.
I think that's just a general tendency of humans to judge the things they don't know anything about, right? I think that's the template of ignorance in some way. Like,
I was ignorant.
we all were. Like,
I was ignorant.
we all look at something that doesn't fit our understanding or our lifestyle, and and we just pass judgment on it because that makes us feel better about our position. I think that's normal. I don't think we're ever going to get rid of that in human beings. And I think the most important thing is stop giving a fuck. What people think, you do what you got to do. Experience what you got to experience. No one should jump in and tell you what you should and should not do. People should rightfully and courteously warn you against something that's potentially dangerous. The risks of anything should be made known. But as far as judgment or stigma, who gives a fuck? I mean, you do what you got to do. Experience your life. It's your life to live. You make a mistake. Maybe the mistake was important to make, so you learn from it. So that is a very far thing anyone should focus about. And calling people hippie, even the word hippie, like we're talking about, like what is that really supposed to mean? Are you talking about someone that's kind of living more loose and free and speaking in a certain way that doesn't kind of align with people's rigid idea of what life should be? Get a real job. What does that mean? What are we talking about here? Long hair, dreadlocks. It's just it's still a blanket term of some kind of people that are just living, and also we make them all create a culture out of it because we judge them. If nobody judged hippies, as we're calling them, there would never be a hippie group. There'd just be people who are living free and happy and trying to not fit in society's pre-existing mold. We never needed to make a whole thing out of it, right? But everyone's going to call them something. So be like, yeah, I am a hippie. That's them accepting. All right, I am this thing that everyone says that I am. But who cares? I feel that same way about religious identities and cultural identities. Whatever identity you're trying to implement into yourself, it's really also in some way a rebelliousness towards what society thinks you should do, right? Unless it's that strict job, family, no one seems to judge that. We're like, okay, that's what you're doing right. I judge that the most. They're the saddest people. They're the most confused people. They feel stuck. That I've met very few people on this planet that are living that exact way the society says you should live, that are truly happy and fulfilled and very content and at peace with their experience of life. I've met very few people. And if they are that way, it's their natural, like God-given wisdom to be able to hold themselves that way, regardless of what they're doing in their life. Even if they're living in this boring rut of a life that the world has made them live, they're still able to be peaceful. And I really respect those people because they have such a power that they may not even know. For the rest of us, life will torture you if you're not tuned to experience it in its full entirety. That's just the nature of the human experience. The deepest part of you won't want you to be content with nonsense. It doesn't want you to be content with things that are keeping you imprisoned. And the ego's struggle with it forces us to have stigmas for others and judgment on others. So we just feel better about ourselves. All part of the sickness, all part of the illness as I see it. And you know what? Maybe that's why some people might need to go down that path of some kind of intervention of something of some kind to make you see past it. Good. So, but living under this fear of stigmas of others, you got to drop that.
That's a fantastic way and a perfect way to say, I am whatever you say I am.
Are you quoting Eminem right now?
If I wasn't, then why would I say I am?
Of all the things I thought was about to happen, I didn't think Eminem lyrics were about to get quoted.
In the TV, in the news, every day I am.
That's just the way I am.
I don't know. That's just the way I am. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Running Bear.
All right. Thanks for having me, man.